I am the work, and the paintings are the manifestation of that. So one can talk about that, but that's really, in a way, outside the main kind of the core of it is how I relate to myself, how I relate to the world, how I understand myself and the world. I'm here purely through coincidence. I wasn't supposed to come to Arles at all. I was going to Marseille for a few weeks, and then my friend that I was supposed to meet passed away. And so I've ended up here in Arles. When I came to Arles to stay with my friend Tony, who was generously said he would host me for a while, and I realised that I knew this was the town that Vincent Van Gogh had lived in and worked in, but I didn't quite fully appreciate the depth to which his presence pervades everything. And so then I was affected by that, and I decided I would take on a response, which is to make as many paintings as he made when he was here. So I'm here doing this project, and I hope it goes some way to justifying my presence here. I was in an emotional state because my friend passed away, and I was very moved by the circumstances that brought me here. And so I was in that state, and I was feeling probably some of the tragedy of Vincent's life, the fact that he was such an outsider, and that he came to Arles hoping to find something very important for his work. And of course he did, but he had a very troubled life while he was here, mentally and emotionally. And so that got me thinking about how precarious how fine the line is between a balanced view of the world and when you're tipped off that balance. And I wanted to put myself in a situation where I could make the most out of how I was feeling. And that's how the project started. I responded to Vincent's presence. The third day I was here, I visited the Espace Van Gogh, which is the public hospital where he was admitted after he cut off his ear and had a terrible mental illness episode. He was very, very distressed, and so I visited that space, and it was a very emotional experience to be there. And suddenly I turned around and I saw a figure that maybe I was particularly vulnerable, or I was just focused on Vincent. I saw a figure that to me appeared to be the figure of Vincent, and then the figure vanished. And I've not had that experience again, but it moved me very deeply. It sort of unsettled me, and it made me ask a lot of questions about the nature of my stability and how I was feeling. And I decided that I would channel my energy into a project responding to Vincent's presence in Arles. And on that day I began my first painting later that night. Well, my practice, it's a multidisciplinary practice, and it's been going for about 55 years or so. I make installations, and I make musical performances, and I make paintings as well, and I write. And the overwhelming majority of my projects have all been made blindfolded. And so I believe that it was important for me to continue working in that way somehow. And so and it's because I believe that the invisible world is a world that we respond to emotionally, even though we can't see the energy flows. And the visible world is simply a manifestation of the invisible forces, the dynamics that we can't see. Anyway, that's the reason why I make the work blindfolded, so I can respond to what can't be seen. And I bought a basket that I put over my head when I made the first painting. And I used that basket to make the first touches on most of the paintings I've made. Some have continued on blindfolded, painted whilst I was blindfolded, and some I finished in the studio when I wasn't blindfolded. Well, you can't make them visible, but you can feel them. So if you put yourself in that space where you're not relying on the outer world, which can be really distracting, of course, confusing. We think what we see is what is real, and we feel accordingly. So to put myself in a space where I can't see, where I'm blindfolded, immerses me more deeply in the world of feeling around me. You're traveling in the unknown and you're making marks you can't see. So the response is to a whole sensory world that isn't about the visible world. So you're relying on what you're feeling inside. So it's about, a lot of the journey is about trusting the process, loss of cognition, but trusting that what you're feeling will take you somewhere of significance to the project, that you will respond in a way that offers something to people that see the work later, and certainly offers something to me as I make the work. It makes me feel as though I'm inside a really truthful space, a space that's authentic, that is in alignment with my inner feelings. Often the inner life is at odds with what we see. I'm interested in trying to make an alignment between the two. And so my purpose was to divest myself of the anxiety that follows that journey and simply trust that whatever self I was inhabiting was the authentic self for that moment. I didn't want to be preoccupied with being consistent or with having a consistent vision. I wanted to respond to what was happening around me with the basket on my head. And so that means that you're very volatile. Things change. You change. There's changes in the air. There's different feelings. You're very sensitive to breezes that come past you. You hear a sound. It could be someone. I just wanted to be able to journey through all of that as authentically as possible and not try and control anything. Courage can take you through things. It can take you to the other side of something you don't know or understand. So that's what I'm interested in doing, getting to a side of my own experience that I haven't yet been in, or that I don't understand, or that I'm not comfortable with. And so I'm interested in hoping to be courageous more than anything else, more than skillful or talented or anything like that. But I know when I don't feel comfortable, and that's what I aim, that's the space I aim to be in. I trust that space. I trust that lack of knowledge, lack of knowing. I want to be a beginner as often and as much as I can. I believe that that's the space that can lead you somewhere. When I'm in that space, I don't rely on knowledge. I rely on something deeper. I have to dig something out that's beyond knowing. I don't know what it is, and I don't know how to access it really, but when you're in a situation like you're blindfolded and you're making a painting or you're performing on the keyboard or something like that, something has to happen that isn't based on knowing, because you're in the midst of unknowingness. So, and I trust that space more in terms of how to contact authenticity than I do trust pulling out, something I've done before and that I understand well. I don't trust understanding too much, no. And so then the work comes from that, is the manifestation of that, is the natural unfolding of that, if you like. I think every artist works on themselves primarily either in a conscious way or not. And I think that the interesting journey for me has been observing myself and noting the changes and the shifts and how I've responded to various crises or opportunities, or how everything has gone in the last few months. And so that's the interesting thing for me. And then the work comes from that. The work is the kind of the corollary of that, but it's not about the work. It's about how I'm understanding myself.